Never find us. Yuna felt tears form in her eyes. She did not try to stop them. We know. She safe shuttle descended through the dark sky of the Valari homeworld. Inside, Captain Yuna sat with her team, watching the gray landscape grow closer through the small windows. Beside her sat Day One, his large hands gripping the edges of his seat. Behind them, Dr. Hannah checked her medical equipment one more time. The air is thin but breathable, Tay reported from the pilot's seat. Temperature is very cold. I recommend heavy clothing. We expected that, Yuna said. Take us down near the main city. Mira said she would meet us there. The shuttle touched down on a wide platform covered in dust and ice. When the door opened, cold air rushed in, biting at their skin. Yuna pulled her thick jacket tighter and stepped outside. The city around them was beautiful and heartbreaking at the same time. Tall towers rose into the sky, made of some kind of silver metal that still gleamed despite centuries of neglect. Bridges connected the buildings, thin and elegant like frozen spider webs. But everything was dark. Everything was still. It must have been amazing, Hana whispered. When it was alive, it was. The voice came from behind them. Yuna turned to see a figure approaching through the shadows. As it stepped into the dim light, she got her first real look at a Valari. Mira was tall, much taller than any human. Her body was thin and graceful, covered in skin that looked like polished silver. Her face was almost human, with 2 eyes and a mouth and nose, but her features were longer, more delicate. Her eyes were large and pale purple, like faded flowers. She was very old. Yuna could see it in the cracks in her silver skin, in the way she moved slowly and carefully. But there was still strength in those purple eyes, still fire. You are Captain Yuna, Mira said. It was not a question. I am, Yuna confirmed. She stepped forward and held out her hand, the human greeting of friendship. Mira stared at the hand for a moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and took it. Her fingers were long and cold, but her grip was firm. Thank you for coming, Mira said. I did not believe it was real when we first received your transmission. I thought my old mind was playing tricks on me. But you are here. You are really here. We came as fast as we could, Yuna said. Your signal has been traveling through space for a very long time. We only discovered it by accident. Myra nodded sadly. We sent it centuries ago, when our situation first became desperate. We did not know if anyone would hear it. We did not even know if the humans had survived, if you had grown and reached the stars. Tovin believed you would. He had such faith in your species. Tovin? Yuna remembered the name from the signal. He was the one who first helped humanity. Yes, he led our efforts to assist your ancestors. He watched your people for many years. He loved you in his way. He loved your determination, your hope, your refusal to give up. Myra's voice grew soft. He died still believing you would come for us. I am glad he was right. Yuna felt a weight in her chest. This being, this Valari, had helped humanity when they were nothing, when they were primitive creatures struggling to survive. And now she had to do whatever she could to return that favor. Take me to your people, Yuna said. Tell me everything. We will help you. Myra led them through the empty streets of the city. She explained as they walked, her voice echoing off the silent buildings. The Valari had once been millions strong. They had lived on a dozen worlds, traveled to 100 more. They had been one of the great civilizations of the galaxy. But when their sun began to die, everything changed. At first, they tried to save themselves. They built great machines to stabilize the star, but they failed. They tried to move to other worlds, but their ships were old and their people too few. Most of the Valari had already entered the long sleep by then, a kind of deep hibernation that let them avoid the slow death of their civilization. Then came the plague dot. No one knew where it came from. Some thought it was a natural disease, born from the strange radiation of the dying sun. Others believed it was punishment from the universe for some ancient sin. Whatever the cause, the plague spread quickly through the remaining Valari population. Those in the long sleep were protected, their bodies frozen and sealed. But those who stayed awake, the caretakers and guardians, began to die. Within a few generations, only a handful remained. How many of you are left? Hannah asked gently. Mira was quiet for a moment. Awake? Perhaps 50. In the long sleep, there are thousands, but we cannot wake them. The plague is still in the air, still in the water. If we wake them, they will die. They arrived at a large building that seemed less damaged than the others. Inside, Una found herself in what looked like a hospital. The walls were lined with strange pods, each one glowing with a soft blue light. Inside the pods, she could see Valari sleeping peacefully, their silver faces calm. But in the center of the room, other Valari lay on beds. They were not sleeping. They were sick. Una walked among them slowly, looking at their faces. Some were young, their silver skins still smooth and bright. Others were old, like Mira, but all of them wore the same expression of pain and exhaustion. The plague attacks our bodies slowly, Myra explained. It weakens us, makes us tired. Eventually, we simply stop. There is no cure. We have tried everything. Hannah was already moving among the sick, scanning them with her medical equipment. Her face was serious but focused. "What can you tell me about the disease?" she asked. "What have you learned about how it works?" Myra gestured to one of the other Valari, a younger male with nervous eyes. "This is Keth. He is our best scientist. He can explain better than I can." Keth stepped forward and bowed slightly to the humans. "I have been studying the plague for 40 years, he said. "It is caused by a tiny organism, smaller than your eye can see. It lives in our bodies and eats our energy. We have tried many treatments, but nothing works for long." "May I see your research?" Hannah asked. "Of course," Keth said. He led her to a nearby console and began showing her data. The two scientists quickly became lost in their discussion, speaking in technical terms that Una could barely understand. While they worked, Una continued to explore. She found another room, smaller and darker than the first. In this room, there was only one pod. Inside it, an ancient Valari lay still and silent. "That is Tovin," Myra said, appearing at her side. "We put him in the sleep when he became too old to stay awake. We hoped that someday, if we found a cure, we could wake him. He deserved to see his dream come true." Una looked at the sleeping figure. This was the being who had changed human history. This was the one who had given them a chance when they had nothing. "He will see it," Una said firmly. "We will cure your people, Myra. We will wake the sleepers. And we will make sure Tovin knows that his faith was not misplaced." Myra looked at her with those pale purple eyes. For a moment, Una saw doubt there. Fear. After so many centuries of struggle and loss, the old Valari had almost forgotten how to hope. "Why?" Myra asked quietly. "Why do you care so much? You owe us nothing. What we did for your ancestors, we did freely, without expecting anything in return." Una thought about the question carefully before answering. "When I was a child," she said, "my grandmother told me stories. Stories about visitors from the stars who came to help humanity long ago. She said they taught us to heal the sick, to grow food, to read the patterns of the sky. I thought they were just fairy tales. But now I know they were true." She turned to face Myra directly. "You gave us our future," Una said. "You could have let us die, but you chose to help. That means something. It means everything. And now, when you need help, how could we do anything less?" Tears began to fall from Myra's eyes, silver droplets that rolled down her pale cheeks. "Tovin was right about you," she whispered. "He said humans had special hearts. Hearts that never stop caring, never stopped trying. I did not believe him. I thought he was being foolish, seeing things that were not there. She reached out and took Yuna's hands in her own. I believe him now, she said. I believe in you. Yuna squeezed the cold, thin hands gently. Then let us get to work. Over the next several days, the crew of the Horizon began their mission. Hannah and Kath worked together constantly, combining human medicine with Valari science. Day 1 led teams to repair broken systems in the city, bringing power and heat back to buildings that had been dark for centuries. Tay mapped the entire planet, finding resources and safe areas that the Valari could use. It was hard work. The Valari technology was strange and complicated. The disease was stubborn and clever. Many times, Yuna thought they had failed. Many times, she wanted to give up. But then she would look at the sleeping form of Tovan, and she would remember why they were here. She would remember the debt that humanity owed. And she would keep trying. Word spread quickly through human space. Other ships began to arrive, bringing supplies and specialists. The government of Earth declared the Valari mission a top priority. Resources poured in from a dozen colonies. Not everyone understood. Some humans complained that they were wasting resources on aliens. Others feared that the Valari might be dangerous, that this might be some kind of trap. But most humans felt the way Yuna did. They felt the pull of gratitude, of honor, of simple decency. Someone had helped them long ago. Now it was their turn. The Valari who were still awake began to trust the humans. They shared their knowledge freely. The stars were dying. Tovan knew this truth better than anyone else on the Valari homeworld. He stood at the tall window of the great archive, his silver skin reflecting the dim light of their fading sun. His long fingers touched the cold glass as he watched the sky turn from pale blue to sickly orange dot behind him. Rows upon rows of crystal memory stones held the entire history of his people. Millions of years of knowledge, art, science, and dreams were stored in those glowing stones. Soon, all of it would be lost. The Valari were old. They had traveled between stars when most species in the galaxy were still learning to walk upright. They had built great cities on 100 worlds. They had solved mysteries that other races could not even understand. But now, their time was ending. Their sun was sick. The scientists said it would collapse within 300 years. That might seem like a long time, but for the Valari, who lived for thousands of years, it was nothing. It was a blink. It was a single breath before the end. Tovan turned away from the window and walked slowly through the archive. His footsteps echoed in the empty halls. Once, this place had been full of young Valari, eager to learn. Now, most of his people had given up hope. They spent their days in quiet sadness, waiting for the end. But Tovan refused to simply wait. If the Valari must die, he thought, then at least their knowledge should live on. At least something good should come from their existence. He stopped at a special section of the archive. Here, the memory stones glowed with a soft blue light. These stones held information about other worlds, other species. The Valari had watched many young races grow and develop over the centuries. Most of them had destroyed themselves through war or foolishness. But a few showed promise. Tovan picked up one particular stone and held it close to his eye. Inside, he could see images of a small blue planet orbiting a yellow sun. The planet was beautiful, covered in green forests and blue oceans. The beings who lived there walked on two legs, like the Valari. They had curious eyes and clever hands. The humans, they called themselves. Tovan had been watching them for nearly 1,000 years. He had seen them discover fire. He had seen them build their first villages. He had watched them make tools from stone and then from metal. They were young and primitive, but there was something special about them. They never gave up. Other species, when faced with great challenges, often fell into despair. They stopped trying. They accepted death. But the humans were different. When winter killed their crops, they learned to store food. When disease swept through their villages, they searched for cures. When enemies attacked, they built walls and fought back. The humans had something that the Valari had lost long ago. They had hope. Tovin made his decision in that moment. He would help the humans. Not through direct contact, because that would change them too much, but through small gifts, through gentle pushes in the right direction. He called a meeting of the Elder Council. 5 other Valari joined him in the great chamber beneath the archive. They were the oldest and wisest of their kind, though even they looked tired and sad. Mira was the first to speak. She was ancient, even by Valari standards. Her silver skin turned almost white with age. Her eyes, once bright purple, had faded to a pale lavender. "What is this about, Tovin?" she asked. "We have discussed everything already. There is nothing left to say." Tovin placed a memory stone on the table between them. The images of Earth floated up into the air, showing the humans in their small villages. "I want to help them," he said simply. The other elders looked at each other with confusion. One of them, a male named Keth, shook his head. "Why?" he asked. "What does it matter?" "We will be gone soon. Everything will be gone." "That is exactly why it matters," Tovin replied. "We have so much knowledge, so much wisdom. Should it all die with us? Or should we pass it on to those who might use it?" Myra studied the floating images with interest. She watched a human mother teaching her child to weave baskets. She saw a group of men working together to build a shelter. She noticed how they smiled at each other, how they shared their food, how they cared for their sick and elderly. "They are primitive," she said quietly, "but they have good hearts." "Yes," Tovin agreed. "And with a little help, they could become something great. They could carry our legacy into the future." The debate lasted for many hours. Some elders worried that helping the humans would make them dependent. Others feared that the humans might use Valari knowledge to destroy themselves faster. But in the end, Tovin's argument won. The Valari would help humanity, not with weapons or power, but with knowledge, with the tools they needed to survive and grow. Over the next 50 years, the Valari sent small teams to Earth. They worked in secret, always staying hidden from human eyes. They were careful not to give too much, too fast. Instead, they planted seeds of knowledge that the humans would discover on their own. Tovin himself led the first mission. He landed his small ship in a mountain region during the night. The air was cold and thin, but he did not mind. He was too excited to feel discomfort. He found a village nearby, where the people were struggling with a terrible sickness. Many had already died. The survivors were weak and frightened. They did not know that tiny creatures too small to see were causing their illness. Tovin could not cure them directly. That would be too obvious. But he could help them find the cure themselves in the night. While the village slept, he placed certain plants near their water source. These plants would clean the water and kill the tiny creatures. He also left drawings on flat stones near the village, showing how to boil water before drinking it. When the villagers woke, they found these strange gifts. At first, they were afraid. Some thought evil spirits had visited them. But a young woman named the village healer studied the drawings carefully. She understood their meaning. She convinced the others to try boiling their water. Within weeks, the sickness began to fade. The village was saved. Tovin watched from a distance, his heart filled with joy. This was just the beginning. The Valari continued their secret work for nearly 200 years. They helped humans in many ways. They showed them how to plant crops that would grow even in poor soil. They taught them about the stars and the seasons. They shared knowledge of medicine and building and metalwork. Always, they stayed hidden. Always, they made their gifts seem natural. The humans thought they were discovering these things on their own. And in a way, they were. The Valari only showed them the path. The humans had to walk it themselves. Myra joined Tovan on his final mission to Earth. She had grown to love the little blue planet and its stubborn, hopeful people. They stood together on a hilltop, watching a human city below. It was small by Valari standards, but it was growing. The humans were learning. They were advancing. Do you think they will remember us? Mira asked. Tovan considered the question. Perhaps not, he admitted. We have been careful to stay hidden. To them, we are only legends and myths. Stories of strange visitors from the sky. That makes me sad, Myra said. It should not, Tovan replied. We did not help them for thanks or for glory. We helped them because it was right. Because our knowledge deserved to live on, even if our names are forgotten. Myra nodded slowly. She reached out and took Tovan's hand. The sun is getting worse, she said. Our scientists say we have less time than they thought. Perhaps only 100 years now. Tovan squeezed her hand gently. Then we have done what we can. The humans will continue to grow. Someday, they will reach the stars. Someday, they will find other species and share their knowledge, just as we shared ours. And the Valari will be gone, Myra whispered. Our bodies, yes, Tovan agreed. But not our spirit, not our dreams. Those will live on in every human who looks up at the stars and wonders what is out there. Those will live on in every discovery they make, every problem they solve, every life they save. They stood in silence for a long time, watching the human city. Lights began to appear as the sun set. The humans were lighting fires and candles against the darkness. Such a simple thing, but it filled Tovan with hope. These little beings would survive. They would grow. They would become something wonderful. The Valari returned to their dying homeworld. They sealed the great archive and prepared for the end. Most of them fell into a deep sleep, choosing to dream away their final years rather than watch their world collapse. But Tovan stayed awake. He continued to watch the humans through his long-range sensors. He recorded everything in a special memory stone, the last record of Valari contact with Earth. Years passed, decades, centuries. The Valari sun finally collapsed, just as the scientists had predicted. But it did not explode. Instead, it shrank into a small, dim star that gave barely enough heat to keep the planet alive. The Valari who remained awake struggled to survive in the cold and darkness. Tovan was among them. He was very old now, his silver skin cracked and dull. But his eyes still watched the stars. His heart still hoped, and far away, on a small blue planet, the humans continued to grow. They built great cities and sailed across vast oceans. They invented machines that could think and ships that could fly. They reached up toward the sky with eager hands. They did not know that someone was watching them. They did not know that someone was waiting. But someday, they would. Someday, they would find the Valari. And then, perhaps, they would remember the ancient gifts that The starship Horizon moved through space like a silver fish swimming through a dark ocean. It was not the biggest ship in the human fleet, but it was fast and strong. Its hull had been scratched and dented by years of exploration, but its engines still burned bright. Captain Yuna stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and short black hair. She had been exploring space for 20 years, and she had seen things that most humans could only dream about. She had walked on planets made entirely of ice. She had swum in oceans of liquid metal. She had talked with alien species that had 3 heads and 6 arms. But today, she was bored. The Horizon was on a routine mission, mapping a section of space that no human had visited before. It was important work, but it was not exciting. For 3 months, they found nothing but empty space and dead rocks. Anything on sensors? Yuna asked. Her science officer, a young man named Tay, shook his head. He was tall and thin, with glasses that he constantly pushed up his nose. He was brilliant with computers and machines, but he was also very shy. "Nothing, Captain," he said quietly. "Just more empty space." Yuna sighed. She walked over to the main window and stared out at the stars. So many stars, she thought. So many possibilities. And yet, day after day, they found nothing. "Captain?" A voice came from behind her. Yuna turned to see her chief engineer, Day One. He was a large man with strong hands and a kind face. He had been with Yuna since her first command, and she trusted him more than anyone else on the ship. "What is it?" she asked. "The crew is getting restless," Day One said. "They need something to do. Something interesting." "I know," Yuna replied. "But we cannot control what we find out here. Space gives us what it gives us." Before Day One could respond, an alarm began to beep. It was not a loud alarm, just a soft, steady sound. Tay's fingers flew across his console, his eyes wide with surprise. "Captain," he said, his voice suddenly excited. "I am picking up a signal." Yuna was at his side in an instant. "What kind of signal?" "It is weak," Tay said. "Very weak. But it is definitely artificial. Someone made this signal. Someone intelligent." Yuna felt her heart beat faster. This was what she lived for. This was what made all the boring days worthwhile. "Where is it coming from?" she asked. Tay worked at his console for several more seconds. His face grew more and more confused. "That cannot be right," he muttered. "What is it?" Yuna demanded. "The signal is coming from the outer reach," Tay said slowly. "From a star system that should be completely empty. Our records show no planets there, no stations, nothing. Just a dying star." Yuna leaned closer to the screen. She could see the signal now, a faint line on the display. It pulsed steadily, like a heartbeat. "Play the signal," she ordered. Tay pressed a button. A sound filled the bridge, strange and haunting. It was not human speech, but there was something about it that felt desperate, sad, like someone crying for help. "What language is that?" Day One asked. "I do not know," Tay admitted. "The computer cannot translate it. It does not match any known alien language in our database." Yuna listened to the signal for a long moment. She closed her eyes and let the sounds wash over her. There was pain in that voice, she realized. Pain and fear and hope, all mixed together. "Set a course for the source of the signal," she said firmly. Day One looked at her with concern. "Captain, that region is dangerous. The dying star could release deadly radiation at any time. And we do not know who is sending this signal or why. Someone needs help," Yuna said simply. "That is all I need to know." She turned to face her crew. They were all looking at her, waiting for her decision. "I will not order anyone to come with me on this mission," she said. "It could be dangerous. If anyone wants to stay behind, I will understand." No one moved. No one spoke. They all just nodded and returned to their stations. Yuna felt a warm pride fill her chest. These were good people. Brave people. "Then let us go," she said. Full speed. The horizon turned and accelerated toward the distant star system. It would take them 3 weeks to reach it, even at maximum speed. 3 weeks of wondering what they would find. During the journey, Yuna spent hours listening to the signal. She played it over and over, trying to understand. The ship's doctor, a gentle woman named Hana, found her in the observation room late one night. "You should sleep, Captain," Hana said softly. She was older than Yuna, with gray streaks in her hair and warm brown eyes. She had been a doctor for 30 years and had saved more lives than she could count. "I cannot," Yuna admitted. "There is something about this signal. It feels familiar somehow, like I have heard it before in a dream." Hannah sat down beside her. Together, they listened to the alien voice crying out across the void. "Do you think they are still alive?" Hannah asked. "I do not know," Una said. "The signal has been repeating for a very long time. Tay thinks it might be centuries old." Centuries? Hannah was surprised. Then whoever sent it might be long gone. Maybe, Una agreed. But what if they are not? What if they have been waiting all this time, hoping someone would hear them? Could you live with yourself if we did not try? Hannah smiled sadly. No, I suppose I could not. They sat together in silence, watching the stars stream past the window. Somewhere ahead, in the darkness, someone was calling for help. And the horizon was coming. 2 weeks into the journey, Tay made a discovery that changed everything. "Captain," he called out, his voice trembling with excitement. "You need to see this." Una rushed to his station. The young science officer was pale, his hands shaking as he pointed at his screen. "I have been analyzing the signal," he explained, "trying to find patterns, anything that might help us understand it. And I found something hidden in the transmission. Data. Lots of data." "What kind of data?" Una asked. "Star maps," Tay said. "Medical information. Scientific formulas. And historical records. About Earth. About humanity." Una felt cold. "That is impossible. How would aliens have information about Earth?" "I do not know," Tay admitted. "But look at this." He pressed a button and images appeared on the screen. Una saw ancient Earth, thousands of years ago. She saw primitive humans building their first villages. She saw them learning to farm, to heal the sick, to read the stars. And in some of the images, she saw something else. Tall figures with silver skin, watching from the shadows. Helping. Teaching. What are those? Day One asked, looking over her shoulder. Una shook her head slowly. "I do not know. But I think they helped us. A long time ago." She turned to face her crew. Their faces showed the same shock and wonder that she felt. "These beings, whoever they are, may have given humanity its start," Una said. "They may have helped our ancestors survive when we were young and weak. And now, they are the ones who need help." She straightened her shoulders and lifted her chin. "We owe them," she said firmly. "Whatever it takes, we will find them. We will help them. Because that is what humans do." The final week of the journey passed slowly. The crew prepared for anything. They checked their weapons and their medical supplies. They ran drills and studied everything they knew about the mysterious signal. Hannah gathered a team of the best doctors and nurses on the ship. She did not know what injuries or illnesses they might find, but she wanted to be ready. Day One worked day and night to make sure the ship's systems were perfect. He reinforced the shields against radiation. He upgraded the sensors so they could see better in the dying light of the old star, and Una planned. She thought about every possibility, every danger. She made backup plans and backup plans for her backup plans. Finally, on the 21st day, the horizon arrived. The star system was dark and cold. The central star, once bright and powerful, had shrunk to a dim red ember. It gave off barely enough light to see by. "Scanning the system," Tay reported. "I am detecting one planet, very close to the star. It is barely warm enough to support life." "Signs of civilization?" Una asked. Tay worked at his console. His face grew serious. "Yes," he said quietly. "I am detecting large structures on the planet's surface. Cities, I think. But they are dark. No power signatures, very little heat. If anyone is alive down there." He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. "Take us in," Una ordered. Carefully. The horizon moved deeper into the system. As they got closer to the planet, they could see it through the windows. It was a sad gray world, covered in ice and shadow. But here and there, they could see the remains of great buildings, towers and domes that had once been beautiful. "Captain," Tay said suddenly, "I am receiving a new signal from the planet's surface. It is responding to us." Yuna leaned forward. "Open a channel." Static filled the bridge. Then, slowly, a voice emerged. It was thin and weak, but it was definitely alive. "This is Myra of the Valari," the voice said. "Who are you? Why have you come to our dying world?" Yuna took a deep breath. This was the moment. This was why they had traveled so far. "This is Captain Yuna of the human starship Horizon," she said. "We heard your signal. We came to help." There was a long pause. Then the voice spoke again, and this time it was filled with wonder. "Humans?" Myra whispered. "You are. Humans? From Earth?" "Yes," Yuna confirmed. "We are from Earth." Another long pause. When Myra spoke again, her voice was shaking. "We helped you," she said. "Long ago. We helped your people when they were young. We thought you would never know. We thought you would." The laboratory was cold. Even with the heaters working at full power, the chill of the dying world crept through the walls. But Dr. Hana did not notice. She was too focused on the screens in front of her, too lost in the puzzle that consumed her every waking moment. 3 months had passed since the Horizon arrived. 3 months of work, of failure, of trying again. Hannah had slept only a few hours each night. She had forgotten what hot food tasted like. But she was close. She could feel it. "Show me the latest results," she said. Keth, the Valari scientist, pulled up the data on a floating display. His silver fingers moved gracefully across the controls. In the weeks they had worked together, Hana had grown to respect him deeply. He was brilliant, maybe the most brilliant person she had ever met. But more than that, he was kind. He cared about his people with a passion that reminded her of herself. "The new treatment slowed the disease by 40%, Keth reported. "That is better than anything we have tried before. But it is still not enough. The organisms adapt. They find new ways to attack." Hana studied the data carefully. She could see the tiny creatures that caused the plague, magnified thousands of times on the screen. They looked almost beautiful, like little stars with many points. But she knew how deadly they were. "They are clever," she muttered. "Too clever. Every time we block one path, they find another." Keth nodded sadly. "We have been fighting them for generations. They always win in the end." Hannah refused to accept that. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the dark city. Somewhere out there, 50 Valari were slowly dying. Thousands more slept in their pods, waiting for a cure that might never come. And in one special pod, Tovan lay silent, his ancient dreams still unfulfilled. "Tell me again about the plague," Hana said. "From the beginning. Tell me everything." Keth sighed. "I have told you many times already. Tell me again. Maybe I missed something." So Keth told the story once more. The plague had appeared about 500 years ago, shortly after the sun began to collapse. At first, it was just a minor illness, causing tiredness and weakness. But over time, it grew stronger, more deadly. The Valari scientists studied it obsessively. They discovered that the organisms attacked the energy centers of Valari cells, draining them slowly. They tried many treatments, but nothing worked for long. The organisms always adapted. "Wait," Hana interrupted. "You said it appeared after the sun began to collapse. Is there a connection?" Keth thought about this. The scientists at the time believed so. They thought the strange radiation from the dying sun might have caused the organisms to mutate, but they could never prove it. Hannah felt something click in her mind. She walked back to the screens and began pulling up old data, records from the early days of the plague. The organisms changed when exposed to the radiation, she said slowly. They became more dangerous. But what if we could use that? What if we could make them change again, in a different direction? Kath stared at her. What do you mean? In human medicine, we sometimes fight fire with fire, Hannah explained. We use a weak form of a disease to make the body strong against a strong form. What if we could do something similar here? What if we could expose the organisms to a specific kind of radiation, something that makes them weaker instead of stronger? Kath's purple eyes went wide. That is a strange idea. We have never considered such an approach. That is because you have been fighting alone, Hannah said gently. You have been using only Valari thinking. But now you have us. And humans think differently. She began working furiously, combining Valari data with human medical knowledge. Kath watched in amazement as she drew connections that no Valari had ever seen. She asked questions that no one had thought to ask. She challenged ideas that had been accepted for centuries. Hours passed. Days. Hannah barely stopped to eat or sleep. Una visited often, bringing food and forcing her to rest for at least a few hours at a time. You will kill yourself at this rate, Una warned. I do not care, Hannah replied. I am so close. I can feel it. Finally, on a quiet morning, Hannah made her breakthrough. Kath, she shouted. Come look at this. The Valari scientist rushed to her side. On the screen, they could see the plague organisms reacting to a new treatment. It was a combination of Valari medicine and a special type of radiation that humans had discovered long ago. Together, they created something entirely new. The organisms were not dying. They were changing. Their deadly points were becoming soft and harmless. Their hunger for Valari cells was disappearing. They are transforming, Kath whispered. You are making them harmless. Not just harmless, Hannah said. Look closer. Kath leaned in. He watched as the changed organisms began to attack the original plague organisms. They were fighting each other, the harmless ones destroying the deadly ones. They are curing the disease, Kath said, his voice shaking. They are curing it themselves. Hannah nodded, tears of exhaustion and joy running down her face. We turned the enemy into a friend. We made the plague fight itself. The news spread quickly through the Valari city. For the first time in 500 years, there was hope. Real hope, but Hannah was careful. This is just a test, she warned. We need to make sure it works on real patients before we celebrate. She chose the sickest Valari to test the treatment first. His name was Ren, and he was very old. He had been fighting the plague for decades. His silver skin had turned gray, and he was too weak to even stand. If this does not work, I will die anyway, Ren said calmly. I would rather die trying than die waiting. Hannah gave him the treatment. Then she waited. The first day, nothing changed. Ren slept, too weak to wake. Hannah sat by his side, checking his readings every hour. The second day, his readings began to improve. His cell energy levels went up slightly. His breathing became easier. The third day, Ren opened his eyes. I feel strange, he said. I feel light, like a weight has been lifted from my body. Hannah checked his readings again and again. The plague organisms in his body were disappearing. The changed organisms were destroying them, just as she had hoped. It is working, she breathed. It is actually working. Word reached Myra, and the old Valari leader came to see for herself. She stood by Ren's bed, watching as he slowly regained his strength. Tears flowed down her silver cheeks. You did it, she said to Hannah. You actually did it. We did it together, Hannah corrected. Kath helped me understand your biology. Your records helped me find the key. This cure belongs to both our peoples. Over the next several weeks, Hannah treated all of the sick Valari. One by one, they recovered. Color returned to their silver skin. Strength returned to their bodies. Laughter returned to their voices. The treatment had another effect that Hana had not expected. It did not just cure the sick. It also cleaned the air and water of the plague organisms. Slowly, the world itself was being healed. Finally, the day came that everyone had been waiting for. The day they would wake the sleepers. The awakening chamber was packed with people, both human and Valari. Captain Yuna stood at the front, with Mira by her side. Behind them, hundreds of pods waited, their soft blue light glowing peacefully. "Are we ready?" Yuna asked. "Yes," Hannah said. "The plague is gone. It is safe now." Myra walked to the first pod. Inside lay a young Valari female, her face peaceful in sleep. "This is Sola," Mira said. She was an artist. She used to paint the most beautiful pictures of our sun back when it was bright. She went into the sleep hoping that someday she would wake to a better world. Myra pressed a button on the pod. The blue light faded. The glass cover slid open. For a moment, nothing happened. Then Sola took a breath. Her eyes opened slowly, blinking against the dim light. She looked confused, uncertain. Then she saw Mira standing above her, and she smiled. "Myra," she whispered. "Is it over? Is the plague gone?" "Yes, my dear," Mira replied, her voice choked with emotion. "It is over. You are safe now. We are all safe." Sola sat up slowly. She looked around the room and saw the humans. Her eyes went wide with wonder. "Who are they?" she asked. "They are our saviors," Myra said. "They are humans. From the planet we helped long ago. They came to repay the debt." Sola stared at Yuna with amazement. "Humans? The little creatures from Earth?" Yuna smiled. "We grew up a bit since then." One by one, the pods were opened. Thousands of Valari woke from their long sleep, blinking and confused. They cried when they learned that the plague was gone. They cried harder when they learned who had cured it. Many of the sleepers had never seen a human before. They gathered around Yuna and her crew, touching their hands and faces, marveling at how different yet how similar they were. "They look like us," one young Valari said. "Only smaller. And warmer." "Yes," Myra agreed. "They are like our children, in a way. We helped bring them into the universe. And now they have grown up to help us." Finally, there was only one pod left to open. The oldest pod. The most important one. Tovin's pod. Myra approached it slowly, her hands trembling. "I never thought this day would come," she admitted. "I thought I would die before I saw him wake again." "You did not," Yuna said gently. "And neither did he. Wake him, Myra. Let him see what his faith created." Myra pressed the button. The light faded. The cover opened. Tovin did not wake immediately. He was very old, older than any other Valari. His silver skin was cracked and thin. His body was fragile. But slowly his eyes opened. They were deep gold, the color of the sun he had watched for so many centuries. They looked up at the faces. Sarun year had passed since the awakening. 1 year since the plague was destroyed. 1 year since the Valari and humans first stood together as friends. The changes in that year were remarkable. The Valari homeworld was no longer dark and cold. Human engineers had built a network of artificial suns that floated high above the planet, filling the sky with warm golden light. The ice had melted. Plants were growing again in gardens that had been empty for centuries. Children played in streets that had known only silence. The cities were alive once more. Valari walked through the streets alongside humans, their silver skin gleaming beside the humans' darker tones. They talked, laughed, worked, and dreamed together. Two species, separated by thousands of years and thousands of light years, now united by gratitude and friendship. On this special day, The central plaza of the main city was decorated with banners of silver and blue, the colors of both peoples. A great platform had been built in the center, covered with flowers and glowing crystals. Thousands of beings gathered around it, Valari and human alike, waiting for the ceremony to begin. Captain Yuna stood at the edge of the platform, looking out at the crowd. She wore her formal uniform, the one she saved for important occasions. Medals gleamed on her chest, awards for bravery and service. But she did not wear them proudly. She wore them because the ceremony required it. Nervous? Day-One asked, standing beside her. A little, Yuna admitted. This is bigger than anything I have ever done. Bigger than saving the Valari. This is about the future of both our peoples. You will do fine, Day-One assured her. You always do. Yuna smiled at her old friend. Thank you for being here. For being here through all of it. Where else would I be? Day-One replied simply. On the other side of the platform, Mira was having a similar conversation with Tovan. The ancient Valari had recovered much of his strength over the past year. His golden eyes were bright again, his silver skin smooth. He walked slowly, with the help of a cane, but he walked. I never thought I would see this day, Tovan said quietly. I dreamed of it for so long, but I never truly believed. You always believed, Mira corrected him. Even when the rest of us gave up, you kept hoping. You kept watching the stars, waiting for the humans to come. Your faith saved us, Tovan. Tovan shook his head. No, the humans saved us. My faith was just a candle in the darkness. It gave us light until they arrived with the sun. The ceremony began with music. Valari instruments played alongside human ones, creating a harmony that neither species had ever heard before. The crowd fell silent as the music swelled, filling the plaza with sound. Then the leaders stepped forward. From the human side came Yuna, representing all of humanity. Behind her walked Hana, Tay, Day-One, and dozens of other humans who had helped save the Valari. They moved with quiet dignity, their faces solemn but proud. From the Valari side came Mira, supported by her people. Tovan walked beside her, his cane tapping on the platform. Behind them came Keth, Sola, and hundreds of other Valari who had woken from the long sleep. They moved with grace, their silver skin catching the light of the artificial suns. The two groups met in the center of the platform. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, remembering everything that had brought them to this point. Then Myra spoke. Long ago, she said, her voice carrying across the silent plaza, our people faced death. Our sun was dying. Our civilization was ending. We had nothing left to give, no future left to build. But we had one thing. We had knowledge, and we chose to share it. She turned to look at the human delegation. We found a young species on a small blue planet. They were primitive and struggling. They did not know how to fight the diseases that killed their children. They did not know how to grow food when the seasons changed. They did not know how to read the stars or understand the world around them. But they had something that we had lost. They had hope. They had determination. They had the fire that we had let die within ourselves. Her voice grew stronger. We helped them. Not for thanks or reward. Not because we expected them to remember us. We helped them because it was right. Because our knowledge should not die with us. Because somewhere in the universe, that fire should keep burning. Now Yuna stepped forward. The crowd leaned in, eager to hear her words. For thousands of years, Yuna said, humanity grew and learned. We discovered fire and then electricity. We built cities and then starships. We reached out beyond our world and touched the stars. And all along the way, without knowing it, we carried the gifts of the Valari with us. She looked at Mira with deep respect. When we found your signal, we did not know what to expect. We were afraid and curious and uncertain. But when we learned the truth, When we understood what you had done for us, there was no question. We had to help you, not because we owed you a debt, but because that is who we are. That is who you helped us become. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small object. It was a crystal, old and worn, but still faintly glowing. Gasps came from the Valari in the crowd. This was found on Earth many years ago, Una explained. We did not know what it was. We thought it was just a strange rock. But now we know the truth. This is a Valari memory crystal. One of the gifts you left for us long ago. She held it up for everyone to see. Inside this crystal are images, instructions, lessons, the very first things you taught us. How to clean water, how to heal the sick, how to grow food in dry soil. Simple things maybe, but without them, humanity might not have survived. She pressed the crystal to her heart. We have carried this with us for thousands of years. We will carry it for thousands more. And every human who sees it will remember what it means. It means that kindness crosses the stars. It means that help given freely comes back when needed. It means that we are not alone in the universe. Tears flowed freely in the crowd, from Valari and human eyes alike. Now Myra and Una stood facing each other. Between them, on a small table, lay a document. It was written in both Valari symbols and human letters. The Treaty of Friendship, it was called. The promise that would bind their peoples together forever. This treaty is not about politics or power, Mira said. It is not about trade or territory. It is about something more important. It is about family. She took Una's hands in her own. Thousands of years ago, we chose to help your ancestors. We became your guardians, your teachers, your friends. And now, when we needed you most, you came. You crossed the darkness between stars. You fought a disease that had beaten us for centuries. You saved us. Her voice cracked with emotion. From this day forward, the Valari and the humans are one family. What hurts one of us hurts both of us. What helps one of us helps both of us. We will share our knowledge, our resources, our hopes, and our dreams. We will face the future together. Una nodded firmly. The humans accept this bond. We pledge our ships, our scientists, our doctors, and our hearts to the service of this friendship. When the Valari call, we will answer. When you suffer, we will come. This is our promise, now and forever. Together, they signed the treaty. First Mira with a flowing signature in Valari script. Then Una with bold human letters. The crowd erupted in cheers, Valari voices mixing with human voices in a sound of pure joy. But the ceremony was not over. There was one more thing to do. Tovin stepped forward slowly. The crowd grew quiet again, watching the ancient Valari with reverence. He walked to the center of the platform and stood between Myra and Una. Many years ago, he said, his voice thin but clear, I made a choice. I chose to believe in a species that had barely learned to walk upright. I chose to help them, to guide them, to give them a chance. Many of my people thought I was foolish. They said humans were too primitive, too violent, too selfish. They said I was wasting our time and resources. He turned to face the human delegation, his golden eyes shining. They were wrong. He reached out and took Una's hand in his right, Myra's in his left. You came, he said, his voice breaking. After all this time, after all these centuries, you came. You did not forget. You did not turn away. You came. Una squeezed his cold hand gently. Of course we did. How could we not? You gave us everything. You gave us a future. The least we could do was share it with you. Tovin smiled, the first real smile he had worn in centuries. I always believed in humans, he said. From the first moment I saw your ancestors, struggling and hoping and refusing to give up, I knew you were special. I knew you would become something great. But even I did not imagine this. He looked around at the crowd, at the Volari and humans standing together. "This is better than anything I dreamed," he said. "This is not just survival. This is not just gratitude. This is love. Real love between two peoples who should have been strangers." He raised their joined hands high. "Let this be remembered throughout the universe," Tovin declared. "Let every species know what happened here. The Volari helped humanity when they were young. Humanity helped the Volari when they were dying. And now, together, we will build a future brighter than any star." The crowd roared. They cheered and cried and embraced each other. Volari held humans. Humans held Volari. Strangers became friends. Friends became family. Una stood in the center of it all, feeling the warmth of 1,000 hearts around.